Hello, I'm Amanda Smith, the Director of Education here at the Art and Culture Center Hollywood. We've created this video today to let you know, to lead you through the activity that we did for this month's Free Arts Family Day. As you may know, every month the center does a Free Arts Family Day. It's the third Sunday of every month. And every month we have a different theme. The galleries downstairs are open and free to the public for you to come and explore. And then upstairs in our community gallery, just outside of the room I'm in right now, we set up the space to guide you through an activity that you can do with your friends and family. If you're not able to come to the center, we create these videos so that you can do them at home. We also prepare kits of all the materials that you can just come by the center to pick up if you would like to do that. And we also generally try to make the activities use pretty common objects. So if you can't come to the center to get the kit, most likely you have materials or good substitutes for these materials at home. Every month, all of our family days have a STEAM or science, technology, engineering, art, and or math focus. And so before I dive into the activity, I want to talk to you a little bit about the science of what we're talking about for this month's theme. And if you haven't guessed from the image behind me or the picture on my shirt, this month we are talking about the monarch butterfly. Now, the monarch butterfly looks like this, not normally this big, normally just a regular butterfly size, but put the picture up so that you could get some good detail. You most likely have seen one of these butterflies. They're pretty common. I kind of think that for a lot of people, they might be like the butterfly that we think of when we think of butterflies. But classic orange and black patterns. Yeah. And just a couple of things about butterfly anatomy, right? Looks like 2 wings, it's actually 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, a head, thorax, abdomen, and the 2 antennae. And underneath the butterfly would be those legs, right? So we chose the monarch butterfly for this month's family day to focus on because it's November. And the monarch does something pretty special, which is unlike something that most other butterflies do, which is that the monarch migrates or flies from one place, stays there for a little while before returning or heading back towards that place. The monarch doesn't actually make a full return, but the idea of migrating is making a trip for a little while and then kind of coming back, right? A lot of times we hear about migrations with winter. Now, I'm new to South Florida. Where I'm from, we have real winters with lots and lots of snow. So it might be a little different for you here. But where it gets really cold, those animals and sometimes those butterflies have to leave those areas to find someplace warmer that they will hang out until it gets warmer back where it was colder, and then they can fly back. Again, I'm not sure how much migration necessarily happens here in South Florida, but a lot of animals are known for it. Geese, if you've ever seen animals flying in like that V shape, they're usually flying to migrate. Now, again, this butterfly is super small, right? Just a little insect with little wings. If you've ever seen a butterfly, really thin, delicate wings. And yet this butterfly migrates thousands of miles, okay? Now, what's really interesting, if you look back at the history of what science has learned and grown to understand about the monarch, for a long time, scientists didn't know where the monarch went. They would see the butterflies in late summer and then they would just disappear. But they wouldn't find any butterfly bodies. They weren't finding like butterflies that had lived their full life cycles and just, died, and then they would find them. They just had disappeared and they had no idea where they were going. Some scientists started to figure out maybe they're migrating because they go away for a while and then they're back, but they couldn't figure out where they were going. So they had a feeling they were leaving, but they didn't know where. So scientists decided, well, why don't we see if we can follow the butterfly? So they actually took little tiny stickers and affixed the stickers. You can see this white one right here on the wing to the wing of the butterfly. Don't worry, it doesn't hurt the butterfly, okay? And I can't exactly make out what this one says, but I think if we were to look really close, it probably says something like, if you find this butterfly, call this number, and it'll give you a little unique code. And so that way, say this butterfly made it from Illinois all the way down to Texas. And some intrepid photographer got a really great photo of this exact butterfly, perched on this, what looks like a blade of grass. And they were able to zoom in and see that number. Well, they could call and report, hey, I'm here in Texas, I saw your butterfly. And that helped to solve the mysteries for science as to where these butterflies were going. So the scientists eventually found that these butterflies, or almost all of the monarchs in the United States, end up way down here in a little town just outside of Mexico City in Mexico. So if you can tell what we're looking at here, it's a map of the United States. Up here we have Canada, right? Here's the United States, and here's Mexico. Some of these butterflies come all the way from way up here in Canada and fly thousands of miles all the way down here to Michoacan, Mexico. That's the name of the town that they end up in, Michoacan. Now, what's even crazier, you might already be like, wow, okay, so a tiny insect with really thin wings flies through rain and wind and who knows what else, all the way for months, to get down here to Mexico. It could take them about 2 months to make this flight. That in and of itself is amazing, right? But it gets even more amazing. The butterflies that fly this route and all end up in the same trees in this little town in Mexico every year have never been there before. They've never been to this town in Mexico. They don't know where these trees are. They don't know anything about it. And in fact, they've never met their parents. Because of the life cycle of the monarch, there's usually at least a generation or two that stays up in the continental United States and doesn't migrate. So the butterflies that are born late in summer haven't even met the butterflies that have been to Mexico. So even if butterflies could communicate with each other and tell each other how to get there, they wouldn't be able to. So scientists still don't know how these butterflies do it, but they all do, and they all end up in these same trees just outside of Mexico City in Michoacan, Mexico. And it's a pretty mountainous area with lots of evergreen trees or trees that stay green all year round. And so the butterflies descend on this town and they fill up these trees so much so that if you were looking at it from above, you might think that these evergreen trees that are always green had suddenly started to have their leaves die and fall off because their leaves, all of a sudden it looks like they're covered in orange leaves, but it's actually just butterflies. This picture here, we're standing at the base of a tree looking up and seeing all the butterflies fly around in the sky. And these are just on the actual branches covered in these butterflies. And once the butterflies get there, all they really need to do is just kind of hang out. And so they just stay there, conserving their energy, not really eating or drinking, waiting for the winter to end up north so they can start to make their flight back. Now, if all of that didn't blow your mind enough, right? Just imagine being surrounded in this space filled with butterflies, basically trees dripping with these butterflies. There's one more piece of the story that I think is pretty interesting. So to take a step back, all butterflies, when they're babies, right, you may know, they're caterpillars. They look very different from an adult butterfly, right? No wings. They have just these little kind of worm-shaped bodies. And they even have different mouths. So when they're a caterpillar like this, they have like a chewing mouth, right? And so it can eat leaves. Every caterpillar has something called a host plant, okay? And this host plant is the only plant that this butterfly will eat, or caterpillar, right? So for example, I really like broccoli. If I go to a restaurant and there's broccoli on the menu, I'm probably going to order it. But if I can't eat broccoli, I can eat carrots or I can eat a potato, I can eat something else, right? The caterpillar cannot. If the host plant is not on this caterpillar's menu, this caterpillar will not eat, and will not eat so much that it will just die rather than eat anything else. Its body can only eat this host plant. And for the monarch butterfly, the name of this host plant is something called milkweed. Milkweed. So milkweed is a type of plant, just like roses are a type of plant, right? So you've probably seen yellow roses or red roses. Lots of different types of roses. Same thing with milkweed. Different types of milkweed, but there's one big umbrella of that plant, which is milkweed. So The monarch caterpillar can eat different types of milkweed. You can see here's one type, here's another, but it has to be milkweed, okay? So once those butterflies back in Michoacan are ready to start making their return trip to the United States, they have to actually get back across the border into Texas. Because if they don't, they won't have milkweed. There is not milkweed naturally growing, at least not right now, in Mexico. So that means that these butterflies, for whatever reason, fly thousands and thousands of miles to these exact trees for whatever reason, because we still don't know, and they hang out there, but they can't stay there. And they have like literally a ticking like time bomb in them to get them back into the United States to lay their eggs so that their little babies that are going to come out of those eggs are going to have something to eat. And if they don't do that, the monarch doesn't survive. Blows my mind. And I say all of this because it's really exciting to me that one of you watching this video could be the scientist years from now or next month who finds the reason why all these things are happening or digs into the science. Maybe you're the person who figures out how the butterflies know how to get to these trees. Please let me know if you do, because I'm very, very curious. So very, very interesting, and I think a really exciting opportunity for people to be excited about science and how much there is that is still being discovered every day. Okay, now back to the art. Okay, so for our activity today, you are actually going to make your very own migrating butterfly. Okay, so your butterfly can fly wherever it wants and go on tour. All right, so for this, as I said, you can come to the center and get the pre-made kit of materials. But it's pretty straightforward. All you're really going to need for this is a piece. We used like a kind of a thicker cardstock for the backdrop just because it's a little sturdier. But probably even construction paper, if you're careful, would work. Okay. We have included in our kits just a little square piece of cardstock, different colors for you. So you can get that and you can decorate that however you'd like. I actually started to make this one a little fancy, so I just cut the edges to make it a little, I don't know, just to mix it up a little bit. So you could do that. If you have shears, you could kind of cut a different pattern there. But basically all you're going to want to do is just decorate, to decorate your base. Let's see, what do I want to do here? Maybe this one. Oh, I'm going to do one of those big kind of evergreen trees I was talking about. They kind of look like trees that we see around that are usually like those kind of Christmassy type trees. Those are generally evergreens. Okay, so I'm not going to use a ton of color. I'm just doing this one pretty quick just to show you. You can feel free to use crayons, obviously colored pencils. Oh, blue tree. We're going to make a purple tree. I'm make kind of an abstract expressionist tree here. Okay. And yeah, you can decorate this however you want. You can get really fancy. You could even do the United States. I thought about it for a second and I did not trust myself to be able to draw it from memory. So I am sticking with my little crazy tree. Oh, here, I'll make the tree orange as if it's already filled with monarchs. Okay. All right. So here's my kind of wacky background of an orange tree. Now, in order to be able to kind of insert, you'll see that these are two pieces. So the way to kind of insert the butterfly is you can take your piece of paper, okay? If you have an X-Acto knife, that might work really well because then you can just very carefully kind of cut the sides. We found that if we're really careful and just barely, hopefully you can see that, just kind of barely cut it without actually creasing it, we can cut it enough with good scissors. I'm going to do this one. Actually, I'll do this one a little different. This one sideways. You can still kind of cut. So I actually did this one a little different. On the one I had showed you earlier, my cut had been horizontal so that the butterfly can fly from this side of the page to the other. And this one I just made kind of an experiment. It's really big when I'm making art, especially for my science-based art to kind of experiment and to see. So for this one, I experimented and cut my little slit vertical. Okay, so again, I just kind of held the paper and just very gently cut with scissors. You can also, once you start that, or, you know, again, so definitely kids, I would get a parent to help you. And parents, I probably wouldn't let the kids use the X-Acto knife at all. But if parents, if you wanted to start the cut, then once you have the cut, kids can then use the scissors and just open, like widen the cut, right? So if you really want your butterfly to like fly the full length of the paper, you can always make that cut a little bigger. Okay, so now we have that. Again, you can get as fancy with this background as you want. You could put some tape around the side, make a nice edge, whatever you'd like to do. Okay, then for our butterfly, we have, and I think some of our kits include some templates of a butterfly. Also a really nice time to then combine some of those fancy math words and think about the symmetry, or the fact that the butterfly's wings are the same on one half as they are in the other. So you can play with that symmetry and actually practice folding paper in half, right? Maybe you've done this with hearts before. So you have that right along the seam, right? And then draw your half of a butterfly on one half. Again, just something fun to kind of play around with to see if you got the right shape. So I just did, it kind of doesn't look like much, right? But here's my little butterfly body, and here's a couple of wings. And you see, I drew that right so that the edge that I folded it on, right, it stops on the edge, okay? Because that's what we're gonna open it up. And so you wanna always make sure when you're doing this, I'm just gonna cut this just to make it simple. I'm gonna cut it smaller, okay, like that. And then just cut that out. And so if you see what I'm doing, I've kept it folded, right? I'm still holding it folded. I'm not gonna cut along the part that I folded because this has to stay intact, right? So I'm just cutting along the lines on the one side, okay? Make the lines nice and dark, so hopefully it's easy enough for you to see. And again, you can get fancy. I mean, we're talking about the monarch just because the monarch is one of the few butterflies that migrates, right? But it's just really a butterfly inspired art. So butterflies have all different kinds of shapes and patterns on their wings. So feel free to get fancy. Hey, maybe you want yours to be a moth. Maybe you make some feathery antenna to add to it. So great, now we have our butterfly. Okay, so once you have your butterfly, then you can decorate it. I have done a couple here, right? So one got a little more artsy. This one's very scientifically accurate. You'll notice my head, thorax, abdomen, my 1, 2, 3, 4 wings, and my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 legs. The only part of the body that I didn't include would be the antennas. So you could always add antenna if you'd like, but I didn't get that fancy. So, and this one I tried to kind of make look like a monarch. I winged it a bit. Oh, winged it, butterflies. Puns, I don't know. Okay, so great. Then you're gonna take your butterfly and a popsicle stick. You can use regular popsicle sticks. Again, if you don't have the kit at home, if you have any other kind of stick or like maybe an old marker that you were gonna just throw out, you could just tape your butterfly to the marker instead. We're just gonna use a glue stick, but you could also use a glue stick. Probably you'll probably end up reapplying a few times. I'm gonna do it for ease and for non-messiness, but definitely feel free to use white glue. It's probably gonna stick a little better, okay? All right, and then you just take your butterfly, I put some glue on the edge of the stick, and then I pressed the butterfly to the stick. So now I have my butterfly, okay? Then you just take your butterfly and your base, make sure that you're, just barely, oh no, I made my butterfly too big. I'm gonna have to actually, it's good that I was experimenting already. I'm gonna make this a little bigger. Make sure your butterfly actually fits in your little design, okay? There we are, perfect. Oh, look, and now my butterfly can arrive at the tree and it can perch up here. Maybe later on it goes down here and it can fly off to go join the other butterflies. Okay, so that's it, super simple. We're also encouraging you, if you want just your butterfly, or you just get on this like butterfly making, like, I don't know, you just go crazy and you make like 15,000 butterflies and you're like, what am I going to do with all these butterflies? Feel free to drop them off at the center or mail them to us, and we can put the actual butterflies with or without the stick on the wall of our community gallery and keep adding to the wonderful space that you all have helped us create. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this activity. Hope maybe you learned something about the monarch. Please go out, spread the word, plant milkweed, tell people how cool these tiny insects are. So thank you so much. If we didn't get to see you at this family day, we hope we see you at next month's. And we hope you have a fantastic day. Thanks so much for joining us.